Great. Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you may be in the world. My name is Sophia Arend, and I'm the Global Blockchain Business Council's Communications and Content Lead. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to the GBBC Virtual Members Forum. This is a bi-weekly webinar we host showcasing the innovative work of our members around the world. And today we have the pleasure to be joined by Joe Roets, Trey Rutledge, and Phil Abraham of Dragonchain for a presentation and live audience Q&A on Dragonchain's use of enterprise NFTs, their quantum-safe blockchain, and their views on the new era of flexible and scalable smart contracts. So just briefly before we begin, I'd like to introduce our presenters today. Joe is the founder and chief executive officer of Dragonchain. He has over 20 years of experience in software architecture, focusing on security and scalability, and has created and led a multitude of technology startups since the mid-1990s. He has also contributed to notable projects in the blockchain space since 2010 at companies such as Overstock, Coinbase, Symbiont, and the Walt Disney Company. Trey is the Director of Business Development and Strategic Partnerships at Dragonchain. He oversees Dragonchain's international customer success and consulting divisions with partners such as Cloudface, AQED, and he also added patented quantum cyber solutions to Dragonchain's product suite, something we'll hear about today. Phil is the CEO and founder of Cloudface and Zero Space Labs and a board member at Dragonchain. At Cloudface and Zero Space Labs, he creates patent pending and world-class technology solutions for healthcare, cybersecurity, blockchain, and big data. He was also selected by the former vice chair of General Motors to lead the creation of a cloud solution that would migrate the entire global General Motors organizations to the cloud. This led to the creation of Covisint, which has since gone public. Currently, Phil is working to create the largest migration to the cloud, which could have a tremendous impact on US healthcare. So we welcome your questions at any point today during Dragonchain's conversation. You can submit them in the YouTube chat and we'll take them afterwards. Thanks so much, Joe, Trey, and Phil for joining us. I'll hand things over to you again.
All right, so we're Dragonchain, and Dragonchain is all about time. And blockchain specifically, proof that things happen over time. So our history, as described before, we started in 2014 at Disney. I have blockchain experience since 2010, building numerous things, all types of different interesting use cases, and I took the position at Disney because there was a great opportunity to really expand on some of what I wanted to see built into blockchain for scalability, and primarily with the goal of adoption at real businesses. And we open sourced what we had built at Disney in 2016, and I left, and some of the team left in 2017 to commercialize what we had released. So of the topics today, the first one we're going to hit is enterprise NFT and tokenization. And it's particularly important because it ties into a lot of what we would like to see and in the world, that is in the blockchain industry, but so far the most of the platforms have not been scalable enough to make this really work in a way that a business can use. Fees are radically high. They're very volatile. There are all types of issues with scaling a system on a blockchain, and what Dragonchain has built is very interesting because it's not just scaled in a way that you could, what I would call technical scalability. We actually took it upon ourselves to really try to solve the economic scalability side. That is, how do we fix the fees? How do we fix all of the hurdles that a business would have in building out a system, and in this case with tokenization. So if you have questions about how we did it, and I don't want to get too much into the technical here because I could go on for hours, but I want to cover the effect of what we have built and what it means for businesses. So the first thing to notice is that we can scale to millions or billions of NFTs. And that's interesting because NFTs are unique. They're, one-offs. They are not a fungible token. They are a token that represents a thing, typically a physical asset, but sometimes it might be still a virtual asset that is used for various things. In the cryptocurrency or blockchain world, there's a lot of talk right now about NFTs, particularly in capturing the ownership of a virtual asset, like a piece of art or an icon or a thing or a badge. It could be anything. But the hardest thing to account for is a physical asset, that I have something that I can hold in my hand and it has an NFT that represents its ownership. And how do you tie it to the physical item, and how do you move the physical item with the NFT token? And we've spent time since at least 2015 looking at all of those issues. And we've come up with a solution that basically allows us to plug them in or integrate with any software platform, and that lets us create them at scale without the issues of fees and network congestion and other things. And so something that matters there is, okay, we did that, and you might say, well, there have been other platforms that can create their own NFTs on their own chain, on their own system, because a non-fungible token doesn't necessarily, literally have to be on a blockchain. But in this case, we have NFTs on a unique, independent blockchain, which is your own business's blockchain. And that's how Dragonchain works across the board. That every business has its own blockchain, but they are fully interoperable with multiple platforms and other blockchains. That is, by default, our NFTs are exportable to Ethereum, for example. So if you were to let's say you have a catalog of assets that might be important to your consumers. They might be it might be something that maybe these assets represent in the enterprise world pieces, I would say products, things in a supply chain that need to move around, and you need to control access to reporting on the chain of custody of that thing. It could be a carton, it could be a container, it could be a ship, it could be individual pallets inside of a container, and whatever that thing is that you're needing to track, you can pass that NFT between truck to truck to train to other vessel to store. And the reason that it makes sense is that the NFT can control access to reporting on the current state or location or anything that would be necessary in your system to report on that item, which could be billing mechanisms. It could be simple sensor reporting on temperatures and all of the things that you might have in a shipment. And the fact that you can do that at scale without worrying about massive fees. Yet, if there's any reason ever at all that you would need, and in that use case, you probably wouldn't need to move that to Ethereum, but there could potentially be reasons that you would. And when we are doing all of these, when we talk about interoperability, that those tokens themselves and every single interaction with those tokens are proven. That is, our system, our network provides a combined proof that leverages the full hash power of Bitcoin and the full network and hash power of Ethereum. And so we've seen and we've talked about applications like supply chain, access control, governance. We have a few systems that are very interesting on how to do a controlled governance of algorithms and how you upgrade systems, as an example. It's very interesting stuff. And one of the interesting things that we have a long history with is the human behavioral components. That is, if you have this process that ties in with these tokens, and it doesn't have to just be NFTs, they can be full fungible tokens as well, that you can incentivize human behavior. You can incentivize people or teams to follow a process so that you can get real metrics on the process and improve that process. Okay, next subject, smart contracts in any language. So, well, and this by the way does tie in to NFTs and tokenization, that those are components that can be manipulated, can be accessed, can be interacted with smart contracts. And the interesting thing about the way that Dragonchain works, and there have been a few other blockchain systems that do cite the ability to execute multiple language smart contracts, but what we've done is reasonably different, is pretty unique, because at the beginning, all of our goals were very much to attack the business hurdles with using blockchain tech, and a part of that was that blockchain typically, like say if you look at Ethereum or other decentralized blockchain systems, that you can't write in any language that you might be able to write in a language that is similar to a language that your developer knows, which is decent for familiarity. But the issue is that you can't very well, you can't fully leverage the knowledge there, and there are massive and very dangerous pitfalls in just taking a traditional engineer and having them start writing decentralized smart contracts for a blockchain platform. And that's a known thing. So it's a very expensive process, which is in my opinion, massive hurdle for adoption. That if you know that you could use this technology, but that hurdle stands in your way, it's going to be a significant barrier to you building what you want to build for your business. So we created a system for multiple other reasons that tied into this, that is an independently scalable blockchain node, where your business has its own blockchain. And we made a fundamental decision very early on that that we didn't need to have a goal to decentralize your data, to decentralize your operations. We took as a goal to decentralize the proof of what is happening. That the significant and generally applied approach of taking the things that happen in your business and letting you keep those running, and it's generically called a hybrid blockchain. That term didn't exist when we first envisioned and started to build Dragonchain at Disney. That separating the proof from the data and from the smart contract operation meant that smart contract can run on that independent node and can actually use any language that you like. In fact, we can deploy a smart contract using any executable code. And there are obvious benefits to using the code that your developers already know, whether it's Node, Python, Java. I myself have even written multiple smart contracts with Bash shell script, which and the reason I wanted to even highlight that is that you could, if you wanted, if it makes sense, go to an engineer and theoretically within 15 or 30 minutes have a smart contract running that might not be your final smart contract. But in the engineering world, being able to turn on a dime is an extremely important thing, that you might just need something to happen and then you can come back and optimize it and make it more efficient later. But the fact that you can do this means that any one of your devs, including your interns, could be immediately productive on Dragonchain. And so it's an interesting thing, and we've seen the effect all the way back to Disney, where we would have very green engineers coming in to hackathons when we were building a lot of this out, and able to build reasonably complex systems. It was very interesting and very enlightening. And since then, what it has meant is that we can integrate into mobile apps, we can integrate into embedded systems, sensors, IoT, and anything else. And the big picture means that you can use Dragonchain as what would be considered enterprise glue code, where you're combining the inputs and outputs of multiple of your existing systems with smart contracts and decentralized ledgering proof in the middle. So you could connect your accounting system to your payroll system, to your HR system, so that when certain things happen, someone gets a raise, someone leaves, someone is onboarded, that all of those things can be tracked, and you can have the proof that everything is following the process, and you can immediately see when things go wrong. So this means that you can use the existing developers, because they already know your systems inside, but probably more important than that is that they already know your customers. They already know your rules and how your data works, and if you have compliance things that you have to account for and everything else. You can even codify a lot of that you can take the things that you're legally obligated to do, tracking things, reporting things, making sure that at least these 3 steps in the process always happen with whatever SLA you might have. And you can have a report, you can build out for yourself a report that shows everyone in your chain of command that this is actually happening. Including an auditor or whatever might happen if you need to prove to someone on the outside, your customer even. And on top of that, we just were granted a patent, I think about a month and a half, 2 months ago, for enterprise smart contract orchestration, which is kind of on top of our interoperability patents and a few other patents for scalability. This is particularly important because it allows an organization to codify a process, and it's basically a way to meter and to measure the continual improvement of that process. And the main point of it is that it's extremely interoperable, and it's a very clean system because you can add, remove, replace steps in any process with the ability to roll back time and see the state of your systems and data at any point in the past. Which means, if someone comes in thinking something went wrong because of what they see, a customer, a vendor, one of your partners, that you can actually go back and see if that's true. You can figure out, even if it's to the point of debugging that process, that some edge case happened that you've never seen before, and the system state was different than it should have been. You can actually figure out why, because all of that data is there, and it's provably, you can prove to yourself that the data is clean, that there's been no modification of the data, been no corruption, so on. So I'm going to go to the next, and the next topic we're going to cover is quantum safe blockchain. Now, there are a lot of angles to this, and I have about 10 minutes to cover it, so I can't get too far into it. And I'm not the mathematician, right? I'm the software guy. I understand encryption, but I typically understand encryption at a level that would basically be described as logic problems. That the way that you can use signed data, the way that you can use encryption to manage or to make possible what you need to do in a business. And we, at the architectural level, primarily, our first course of action was to separate all of our verification node systems into separate levels, classes. And our actual architectural consensus is called context-based verification. And that means that you can have multiple levels, and our network comes with 5 by default, but you can add more that let you take verification from the angle of a business context. And built in, we have validation. We have a diversity check to make sure that the verification is not in a single data center or from a single owner. And then we have a notary. And then we have what I guess we would best call an interoperability checkpoint for interop with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other foreign systems that we leverage for security reasons. And then the fifth is the business context. That is what you as a business would be building out directly. So the reason that they're split up is to, as quickly as possible, decentralize that proof, and then to tie it into something with massive network security value like Bitcoin or Ethereum, where we can actually tie a dollar figure to the actual proof that your data is as it was, which it's very abstract, so it's hard to describe, but that alone has some quantum resistant features built in because it's less mathematical and more structural. We recently partnered with Cloudface, with Phil, and with Aqued to bring in quantum safe algorithms so that our data at rest, our data at transit can be encrypted with a well-tested, a well-evaluated quantum safe encryption mechanism, which is based on polynomial random number generation. And we can get into any of that if you have questions about it, but the main point is that we fundamentally integrated that tech at the core of our architecture. And I'm proud because the architecture was built to do things like that. As Dr. Owl, who provided this quantum safe encryption technology, improves that technology or optimizes it for certain business applications, because there are a lot of places that technology can be optimized, that all of that can be continuously integrated and flexibly integrated inside of our core architecture. And when I say it's core architecture, that means that the payload that is at rest can be fully encrypted in this way. So if someone got a hold of the payload, they would still have to have access to all of the keys and tech to decrypt it. In transit, the same way. But further, that the actual signing of the messages, the signing of the transactions and blocks, has a component that is also quantum safe enabled, I guess you would say. And so the applications for that are the obvious distributed ledger tech, that if you want to store a series of payloads, a series of transactions on chain, that they are all protected in this way, that the smart contracts themselves can integrate this technology both on the encryption side, on the signing side, and anything else that might be dreamed up. And then identity systems, where everybody knows how important identity is and how, frankly, it is pretty well broken right now in the world. But this is one of the keys to getting there, that we have a decentralized identity system called MiFi Factor that that has the capability to integrate this quantum safe blockchain technology for your identity system. So you have a number of different angles, and that's what we're, big picture, that's what we're trying to do, is make it possible for a business to decide their own priorities. What do they need built out first? Do they need to attack the issues with identity? Do they need to attack the issues with their process? Or who knows what else? And to make that all possible. So those were the three, and I think we're ready for questions. We're probably a little early. I probably went too fast.
No problem at all. This is great, and we have received a number of questions. So we'll start with these, and then for everyone tuning in, keep them rolling, and we'll go through them. So we'll start with the first topic. A few questions on NFTs here. Eder from Brazil asks, what prevents anyone from creating a duplicate NFT of a real asset on a different blockchain?
That's a good one. Well, I mean, the first is if you consider it on the same, because theoretically I could have an NFT tied to this mug, right? And I could make another NFT, this mug, on the same blockchain, theoretically. So it's a matter of information, and every problem is unique. But in that case, you would say, okay, it's best to start at the manufacturer. So I can start with the straight mug, then I can get into, okay, this was printed on it. Then I can get into, we sold it to Joe. It was shipped to Joe. Here's the UPS tracking number. The more information you have, the more likely it's true, and it becomes a matter of literally trust plus the trustless side of everything that's blockchain. So the fact that I have all of that data, and if it's on Dragonchain, you would have the quantum safe, you would have all these things plugged in, but you would be able to prove, let's say I shipped this out, let's say I bought this last year, right? So it's a year old, that the actual purchase or shipping of it would be a year ago, and the manufacturing, let's say a month before that, that you would have proof that the manufacturer created the NFT at that point in time, and that there's $1 billion plus. No, sorry, I take it back. It's 4 billion, approximately 4 billion a year, a little less than 4 billion a year worth of hash power that we can prove at a very conservative metric for Bitcoin and Ethereum combined, and that's what we provide for a measurable proof. And so you can see that was created. Now, the physical side is particularly difficult, and you can do it a number of ways depending upon the value of the item. Like for a mug, it doesn't really matter that much. You could have a sticker on it. You could have something that makes sense. But if it's something that's even approaching a few $1,000s, let alone millions, you can put particular RFID chips or even running systems. If it's a painting or something very valuable, you can put things on it that have an active capability to sign a message. So you can say, okay, I'm not maybe really tracking the painting. I'm really just tracking the IoT device that has the keys that can prove that I'm the painting, right? And maybe it's embedded in a frame, or who knows what. That's fully dependent upon physical security measures, because the NFT can't help you there, other than providing evidence that the item that you want to know is tied to that NFT is really the same item. So you could do multiples, but in our opinion, the big picture is to get that chain of custody and to have enough information that you can feel comfortable that this is the one and that one is not. That someone could create another one, but there's not the provenance. They don't have a signature from the manufacturer that this was real, was actually created. So I guess that's the big picture. Probably too long of an answer.
No, I think that explains it well. Eder asked a follow-up question here, and I believe you kind of addressed it, but I'll ask anyway. So, about this idea of like tying would this also prevent the NFT, like the physical object that the NFT is representing, from being sold in the real world? Yes, like how do you prevent that?
That's a matter of value. So because you can't actually prevent it, right? I would in fact say the harder it is to handle what is the crypto side, the NFT side, the more likely the physical item will be separated from the token, right? That if it's a cheap item like a mug, and I sell it to someone else at a garage sale, it's like, who cares? It's like, oh, the NFT's dead. It's not tied to that. Maybe there's some, if it was a ticket to a concert or something, maybe there's some collectible value to the NFT separate from the physical item. Who knows? There could well be. But the main point is that if it's, let's say it's a high-end item, high-end purse or something, and so what you can do is you can increase the resale value for the brand, which further increases the value of a new item. So if I sell someone a purse as a manufacturer, and they want to buy the next purse, it happens a lot with speakers too, with like hi-fi speakers and tube amps and things like that. That someone will want the new model, so they'll sell the old one, and that's the best way to get audio equipment, right? That you have somebody who just wants the new one. But the problem is you don't know if it's the original. You don't know the history, if there were issues with it, if it's whatever else. That this would provide the value, the ability to show, look, my car has been in for regular maintenance. It's never been in a wreck. All of the things you would track without blockchain, but the beauty is you can do it independently. You can show full access to it, and you can prove to whoever it is that you are selling that item on eBay. You can prove that this is not a knockoff. And when that happens, it means, oh, the person who buys it will want the token. So it'll be a part of that sale. They'll say, okay, you prove to me that you were the second owner of this purse that I can see the chain of custody all the way up. I want the token transferred to me as part of that sale, right? And there are ways to do that as well, right, with escrow contracts and everything else. But that's generally the way. But it's a real world thing. It's less a technical thing. That's more of a how do you make it? How do you incentivize the humans to want to do that? So
that makes sense. Keeping on the NFT thread here, somebody asks, do businesses need to custody and deploy the enterprise NFTs on their own Dragonchain blockchain?
Well, I'll let if Trey and Phil have an so we've talked to some groups. We're working with some groups to do NFTs for supply chain, and Phil's a supply chain guy, right? Now, I will say the one thing I'll bring into that is that every business node on Dragonchain has its own blockchain. So by default, it will be that. But maybe I don't know if Phil or Trey would want to chime in. I'll give it a chance because I've been talking too much. I'm like, I feel bad. That's what I always do, though, right? So, what do you guys think about, like, say, with supply chain? Because some of the groups that we're working with are doing precisely that. They will have not just one chain, right? That they will have a blockchain at every port, at every everywhere it makes sense.
So could you restate that question? Because I want to make sure I answer it properly.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll start with the original question here. So somebody asked, like, do businesses need to run deploy and custody the enterprise NFTs on their own Dragonchain blockchain? And I guess Joe was tying it back to the idea of supply chain, where you might have multiple stakeholders. So maybe you could speak a little bit to how that would work.
Well, the only way I can answer that is supply chains are very complicated, and there are many, many stakeholders. And so the short answer is Dragonchain makes all of that work very easily and come together easily. So that a supply chain with multiple endpoints can come together and act as one.
Right. And they can like every one of those endpoints basically would likely, but not necessarily have its own node. Like say, and Phil, you might even answer this because I don't know enough about supply chains to really answer enough to be dangerous probably, but that any supply chain is going to have small actors as well as large ones, right? You're going to have ports, you're going to have manufacturers, you're going to have distribution, but you're going to have small companies in there that probably wouldn't run their own blockchain, right? But they will interact with the bigger ones.
This is such a great question because you're spot on, Joe, with, you have the small, mid-range, and large. So like a General Motors, which has well over 100,000 different global suppliers. Many of them are small, but they have large ones. And this is completely new territory. So I think for supply chains to run effectively on the blockchain going forward is they're going to have to create clusters. They're going to have to group these suppliers in clusters to make things more efficient. Smaller ones grouped together. And they're also going to have potentially vertical groupings because 3 to 30 different suppliers may all participate in making one product for a car. So you got that vertical integration of the supply chain. You have the horizontal. You have the macro look at the supply chain. You have the micro look at it. You have the different modes of transportation, ocean versus air versus rail versus truck. Then you have many modes coming together. So it goes ocean, hits the port of LA, gets put on the rail to Chicago, then put on a truck to Detroit. So all of this will be thought through to make the supply chain run much more efficiently. I have 1,000 ideas on how to bring this all together so that, like with the Dragonchain blockchain, I'm anticipating 10 to 30% pure savings to the supply chain once they get on the Dragonchain blockchain, which would then improve ROI and improve profit margins. So, and then as a default, they also get the quantum security. So now the vast majority of suppliers can also become secure in their supply chain, which is a big problem.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That kind of, that actually addressed kind of the follow-up question, which was kind of regarding like consortium setting up a Dragonchain.
Can I talk about the consortium? Because that's the typical question.
Please.
And it kind of sometimes it annoys me. Right now, I'm not annoyed by it, but and not the question itself, but the certain players in the blockchain world think that consortiums are necessary, and it's interesting because they tend to help with their consulting practice, but it's a weird thing because our take on it. And I'll tell you the reason that it annoys us is sometimes on some sales calls in the past few years, that would be an assumption. And we'd like, no, you don't need a consortium. In fact, I, as a platform creator, would never want to create a platform that would require you to go out to your competitors and share how you do your business, your proprietary way of doing things, and go through a multi-year standardization of here's how we're going to track things on blockchain in our industry. It's ludicrous, right? It's bad for business. It's bizarre to me as a business person that what we do is in separating the proof again from the payload, that this is my business payload, this is my proof, this is my business process in a smart contract or otherwise, and this is my proof. And the proof is what matters. That's the thing that you can measure that is of massive value. But you don't typically, you might say you won't ever want to expose your proprietary data and how you process that data, particularly because there are any number of people that would attack that on the outside, potentially competitors, anything else. But the crazy thing is that that's been the push for blockchain in a lot of the bigger industries for a long time because of some of those consulting practices. And our angle on that is that you can keep your payloads private. You can hold it all close to chest. And that means that HIPAA compliance, GDPR, CCPA compliance, all of the things, fintech regulation stuff is all already taken care of by default, because it's all on the inside, just like it already is. So you don't have to rework the entire vision of how your system is laid out. It's already separated. And it's an interesting thing, because we will typically say we have all these privacy capabilities, and people will, you're a blockchain. How's that possible? Because it's on chain. And it's an interesting thing that the consortium side, anybody who tells you that a consortium is necessary to use blockchain industry is flat out wrong. So you need to figure out, it might be something you choose to do. There might be a reason for it, right? But to say that it's necessary is it's very important to know that you don't have to, and in my opinion, you shouldn't in most cases. So anyway,
can I go back to my question? I forgot a couple things.
By all means.
Because speaking directly to the supply chain as it relates to the Dragonchain, separate of all the complexity to supply chains, the Dragonchain has holy grail patents, and one of them is on interoperability. And this patent on interoperability, if used properly, completely disrupts and changes for the better supply chains, because we can quickly connect to many areas that currently today can't be connected to, which leads me to also with Dragonchain, our clients get the advantage of complexity science, which is being able to predict with north of 90% accuracy 6 to 12 months before the event happens. And that is derived from going back to interoperability. So if there's thousands of disparate systems that the current supply chain can't touch, therefore they can't make those predictive decision making. Whereas we allow a pathway to complexity science, which gives the ability to make significant decision making well in advance, which then allows you to run your supply chain at phenomenal speeds and phenomenal efficiencies. That's it.
Oh, well, yeah. Thanks for that, Phil. Just in the last couple minutes here, I do want to ask a question that someone sent in on the quantum safe blockchain. They're asking, are you beginning to see more interest from governments and corporates on this, quantum safe blockchain?
Yes, we are. Considerable, just in the last couple months here.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Been a massive uptick.
Yeah. Almost based on like recent news as well. It should be at the forefront of
and I want to add to that, it's very significant what's going on in our world with large government agencies, because we have an exclusive on a solution they're looking for. So we have the quantum-based blockchain, we have the quantum infused smart contracts coupled with our patent on smart contracts, all on the blockchain, and that's become priority number one for the government.
Excellent. Well, we're coming up on the hour here, but I would like to give you all kind of the last word. If you'd like to share kind of what's ahead for Dragonchain, what we should look out for, recent announcements, updates. I know you all launched a den.social as well. So I'll leave it up to you. So
yeah, I can take it. Do you guys want to say anything? I mean, go ahead, Trey. I know. Oh, okay. There's there are a lot of different things going on. I mean, you mentioned Dim.social. It's rolling out really well. We're getting a lot of very interesting value out of it, and it has a unique vision. So that's worth checking out. But I think probably the big picture is, the age of adoption. That's what we've been waiting for, and frankly, for years, even since 2014, that we've been, as Dragonchain, basically gearing up, positioning everything we can for adoption. And you go through a few years in the blockchain industry where it's, there's Wild West craziness going on and everything else, and it's all about building out what we think is coming, and then testing it against what actually comes. So we're getting close.
Yeah.
The tire kicking phase is over.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Phil, so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I certainly know our audience has enjoyed it. Edgar and a few others, thank you. So to everyone who's watching, a recording of this will be made available on YouTube, and we'll distribute it, as well as links and resources to learn more. Dragonchain has a great blog where they post updates, so we'll be sure to share the link to that. Thanks again so much for joining us, and you can always follow the GBBC for other free informative events that we host weekly. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.